मकबूल बन के उसके
لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Most respected Amir Jamaat Ahmadiyya, my dear brothers, sisters in faith, and all those who have joined us on this auspicious occasion, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. One of the most remarkable achievements I'll mention in the course of this presentation today, but in the outset I'd like to quote from William Shakespeare. The subject of my speech, actually during the course of his life, achieved one of the distinctions in that he had learned or read all of Shakespeare in Arabic. So I thought it be appropriate to mention one of those statements which we often hear. Shakespeare said, "Do not fear greatness. Some are born great. Some achieve greatness. And some have greatness thrust upon them." Many people quote this verse of Shakespeare in the course of all kinds of conferences about leadership, in fact. But the reality is few actually achieve the heights of this greatness. In the case of the subject of my speech today, however, I truly believe that in the life and legacy of Hadhrat Maulana Hakim Nuruddin, we see all three aspects of this greatness. He was born in greatness, he achieved greatness, and he responded admirably and commendably when greatness, in fact, was thrust upon him. Now, we all know that next year, 27th of May 2008, we will be celebrating 100 years of the anniversary of the institution of Khalifatul. And it will be a great milestone, an enormous blessing for all of us, which we cannot give enough praise and thanks to Allah. And yet at the same time, Allah says, "Man la yashkur nas, la yashkur Allah." That whosoever is ungrateful to man is also ungrateful to Allah. So with this spirit and with this intent, I would like to take a few moments for us to all together as a spiritual family to reflect, to remember the great services, the great sacrifices of some of those in our past who helped us to get where we are today, and without which perhaps we would not be sitting here at this blessed position of celebrating 100 years of this institution of Khilafat. The personality, as I mentioned, is none other than Hadhrat Maulana Nuruddin. As I said, three aspects of greatness. The first is birth. And when you look at the life of Hadhrat Maulana Nuruddin, you see such a wonderful and remarkable blessing that he was given over and above those of his time. Number one, his descent was direct from one of the greatest illuminary spirits of Islam, Hazrat Umar, Allah be pleased with him, the third Caliph. On his father's side, his entire blood can be traced back to Hazrat Umar, may Allah be pleased with him. And also on his mother's side, his line could be traced back to Hadhrat Ali. So this alone, you can imagine what type of blessing that is of a birth of a child whose blood is linked to these great and powerful figures in the history of all of Islam, the followers, the companions of our blessed master, the Holy Prophet himself. And yet at the same time, one of the greatest gifts that all of us received in Islam is the gift of the Quran. And this is one of the things which distinguished Hazrat Maulana Nuruddin in his birth, that his father and for 10 generations before, all of them were hufaz of Quran. All of them were hafiz of the Holy Quran, had memorized the Quran, and Hazrat Maulana Nuruddin was the recipient of this spiritual blessing of being born in a family at that time when many people had gone away from the reading, the study, the memorization of the Quran. His household was a living MTA where the Quran was being put in his heart, in his mind, in his spirit. As he said, while I was still in the womb of my mother, I can recall the Holy Quran being recited. And when he was born, his mother taught him that holy word. And from that point on, he developed such a keen love and imbibed the keen spirit of always seeking greater and greater knowledge of the Holy Quran. In fact, later on in his life, one of the things he would say that impressed him most about his meeting with Hazrat Ahmad alayhi salam was that he found from the lips of this person such pearls of wisdom and such beauties as he had never heard regarding the Holy Quran. This was the birth, this was the beginning of the greatness of Hazrat Maulana. But then there is life. And of course, in the course of just a few minutes I have at my disposal, I can only take a very few snapshots. As you would do in the case of a family reunion after a long time, you open up the album, you look at those past snapshots that bring you great joy and admiration of times of past. I will share with you just a few glimpses of his life that showed his greatness again. This is a man who would go on to receive certain titles. He would become a hafiz of the Holy Quran. He would then become also a hakim. In fact, they would call him Hakim al-Ummat. Hakim being not only a sage, but one who has mastered the healing arts. And if you looked at his life, you would see that this was a man indeed who had both things at his disposal when it came to healing. For instance, once a lady who was a Hindu, on the course of her death, she had been bewailing the loss of a loved one and kept raising her hands over her head. She did it so many times that her muscles became stiff, and in a catatonic state, she could not drop her arms back down. Everyone tried all they could do to heal this woman. No one was able to succeed. Finally, they asked Hakim al-Ummat for a solution, and he told them a strange solution which no one had heard before. He said, I want you to go into the town and find the most handsome man you can find, and tell him to go inside to that room where she is now standing and approach her with a strong intent as if he's going to disrobe that poor lady. And let's see what happens. The young man went inside the room, and there was a sudden shriek and a cry, and the man ran out. But when they looked in, the woman was so shocked by the experience, her arms had dropped down and she had been cured. One shock cured another. This was the wisdom of Hazrat Maulana Hakim Nuruddin. That was recognized, of course, throughout his life by many personalities and many of great leaders and kings and princes, and he ultimately became the chief physician of the king, the ruler, the Maharaja of Kashmir, and served for him for many, many years. And during the course of that time, he remained devout, simple, and a true servant of humanity.
Makbul ban